Hi, welcome to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com, and this is a service of diabloincgamers.com. I am the host, Flux, and joining me this week is Xanth.
Ahoy, hoy.
And Neinball.
Hi, everybody.
And it's almost 2 weeks since Diablo III launched, and with any luck, you've probably finished your downloads and installs by now. Have you guys actually had a chance to play any?
Yeah, intermittently.
Just a little bit.
Ever so slightly.
And did you enjoy your 5th or 6th Inferno Hell character more, Neinball?
I'm leveling up my second character now in order to get into Inferno, just because trying to play a melee in Act 2 Inferno is, well, painful to say the least.
Who was your first character class, and what kind of build did you try, and how did it compare to your expectations, Neinball?
I was playing a monk, and it met like all of my expectations as I was going and playing through the game. I played predominantly with a 4-person group. Some of the players changed as we continued on, but it was almost always just a 4-player group. From level 1 all the way up until we killed Diablo in Hell, and part of it might have just been itemization. I got really lucky on the drops, or at least I got lucky that my all my friends were playing either barbarians or wizards. No witch doctors or monks in the group pool that I was playing with, but I got all the dex gear, so I was pretty well geared. So I had more hit points, could take more damage, out healed, and dealt more damage than anyone else in the party. So I kind of carried everyone.
And you played to 60 with that monk, and
yeah.
Got into Inferno?
Got into Inferno, went into Act 1. I got my teeth kicked in. I had to go and farm in Hell for a little bit, and had to experiment a lot with different builds before I was actually able to make progress. So I managed to beat Act 1 without too many problems, and then started the grind of farming drops in order to sell in the auction house to afford like one of those 2.5 million gold, like 900 plus DPS weapons, just to be even to touch normal mobs in Act 2 Inferno.
Yeah, the difficulty does scale up a bit.
Oh, yeah. It's going into Act 2 is actually like worse than going from Act 4 into Act 4 Hell into Act 1 Inferno. Is just like the leap from Act 1 into Act 2. And it's just having such a hard time with a melee character. I'm kind of jumping on the bandwagon and leveling up a wizard just so I can actually get into like Act 2 and farm monsters in Act 2 to gear up my monk again.
Okay, we'll get to difficulty curve and Inferno and stuff in a minute. Xanth, how about your opening experience? You played hardcore from the start, so I'm guessing your first character probably didn't get to Inferno.
No, I'm not even on Inferno yet. I'm kind of pretending that part of the game doesn't exist right now. I started out with a monk, because you had to do 1 through 10 to enable hardcore, so I just made it a monk right away. Having played it in the beta, it was fun, but I knew it wasn't the class I wanted to go into hardcore with, even though it does have a whole bunch of perks for it. But I actually went in with a witch doctor. Was just kind of intrigued by what there was to do with it, and kind of being able to have something to act as a shield against all all damage was a nice concept. And currently he's sitting at 52 in Act 4 Nightmare. Not even in Hell yet. And it's been brutal.
So your first character, hardcore, is still alive?
Yeah.
Have you made others that fared less well?
I have a barbarian going right now. So I think it's 22 or so. No major deaths. I've seen some people die, but that's about it.
So in 2 weeks, you've played 2 characters and haven't died yet in hardcore?
Yeah, which is pretty nice.
I don't think you're embracing the concept fully.
It's weird because I feel, having played from Diablo 2, like I really, really don't want this character to die, and I used to be a little more standoffish, like, okay, I can just make another one, it'll be fine, but I think now that my first character is still alive, and I did not expect that, I feel a bigger attachment to it. But I've been slow and steady, and I think that's the key. I think once you start rushing things, then mistakes happen.
Have you been auction housing, or have you been self-finding? How have you gotten your gear good enough to survive?
It's been a little bit of both. When I can, and I find something great, of course, obviously I'd be foolish not to equip it. I've gotten lucky with a couple of games where I was the only witch doctor, so people would, be like, hey, do you want this? And I'm not going to turn it down. But I think every level I will jump on the auction house and I'll take a look and see what I can find, and looking for something affordable. In fact, right now I'm on the auction house, just looking at a few things, and I see something that would be great for me, but it's like $2 million, so I'm not even going to bother on that. But when I can find something that's affordable, I'll go for that.
So you guys have both played only 2 characters in 2 weeks. You haven't been no urge to experiment more than that, Neinball?
I do also have a demon hunter that I've been playing with the wife, but she's actually predominantly been playing on the European server these past few weeks with some of her close friends. So it's we're only I think halfway through Act 1 on those characters.
Yeah, so that's like level 7.
Yeah.
That doesn't really count.
Yeah, so not been experimenting much with that.
So you have a 60 monk, and what's your sorceress or wizard?
Wizard. Before we started recording this podcast, I had just hit 33, and I'm in Act 4 normal.
Wow, that's pretty high for normal.
Well, I spent probably 40,000 gold in the auction house, and he has plus 110 XP per kill and a radiant star in there, so it's 25% XP bonus in his helm.
And what are your 2 characters, Xanth?
Barbarian and Witch Doctor. Keeping it old school with the first 2 they revealed.
And the Barb was what? You said 52?
No, he's 22. The Witch Doctor's 52.
Well, Scott was close.
Yeah, I mean, same thing.
Yeah.
Did you guys plan on experimenting more, or is this kind of what you thought you'd do? You'd play one character a ton and then kind of get into somebody else after 3 weeks?
I always thought I would kind of divvy it up a little bit so you don't get too attached to a character if they die and you have something to fall back on, and that's kind of why I have that Barbarian there. But I was really surprised with how engaged I was with, not just the Witch Doctor, but the game itself, and wanting to kind of keep pushing forward. I started the Barbarian and the Witch Doctor at the same time, but the Witch Doctor was the one I started first, so I kept pushing and wanting to go further with it, and I find myself logging into that character more than any other.
How about you, Neinball? Why do you hate other character classes?
Well, it's not so much that I hate the other character classes. It's just up until I've hit the brick wall, the monk has just been amazing. I mean, it's everything that I had hoped the class would be, and I've experimented with dozens of builds, and I've each time it's oh, this is the build for me, and then you change one skill and it's oh, this is amazing, why did I never try this before? There's just so much to be found and experiment just with that one single class. I had not yet gotten that urge to go through and start experimenting with other classes and seeing what other playstyles were like.
I've had the opposite. I feel when I enter into a game, even though I love my character, I always see somebody else doing something cool. I'm just man, I wish I could be doing that. And I think that's one of the appeals of this game for me, is I had that same feeling in Diablo 2. You're playing a barbarian, and you see them do, you see a wizard do the frozen orb, or sorceress do a frozen orb. And you're wow, that's really cool. I wish I could do that. And then all of a sudden you're, starting, a sorceress the next day. So there's so much more in this game I've yet to explore. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know what I was planning exactly, but I have had a very different experience from you two, in that I have done all 5 classes to at least level 18 or so, and 2 of them are about 30, 36 and 30, I think, are my highest too. So I've just been switching around a lot. The highest character I have is just barely gotten to Act 2 Nightmare, my demon hunter. And I've got a barbarian that's 31 or so. He's in, I think, right at the end of Act 3, and then the other ones are in the middle of Act 2. And I've just felt I've enjoyed it more jumping around and trying different stuff, and I haven't really. Once I got through normal, I was time to try somebody different. I think in Diablo 2 I did more of pushing one character to high levels because I wanted to get to hell and farm gear.
Right.
And it's odd I haven't felt that need in Diablo 2, although you guys at Diablo 3, I mean, you guys obviously have stocked up more high level gear, I would imagine.
Yeah, I've got a decent stash right now. Mainly it's just whenever I find something that I think I could sell, I'm going to toss it on the auction house, and whenever I find something that I think, another one of my characters can use, that goes just right to the stash.
And both you guys are using a lot of auction house, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, I've been, it's like I've gotten butcher runs down Inferno down to about like 20 to 30 minutes, and so I'll go, run through the game, get anything that I think might be worth any value, check to see if any of my friends need it, and then either put it on alt or put it in to the auction if any of my auctions sold, and then go through and check to see if there's any gear that I could get, because most of the stuff is insanely expensive, but if you just check constantly, sometimes you can find really good deals on like high-end equipment to where certain stuff, depending upon the stats, might go for 500,000 or 700,000 gold. You could see that someone just threw it up for like 110,000. You could either take it, or with a couple of items, I've used it for a little bit and then turned around and resold it once I could find something better.
So how do you guys feel about the difficulty curve? That's been one of the comments people have made, is that you can kind of self-find through normal, certainly, but then you get into Nightmare, you start needing better stuff, and especially once you get to Hell, unless you want to go farm Act 4 Nightmare for like 6 weeks, you really can't make good enough stuff in crafting or find good enough stuff without the auction house. Did you guys experience that phenomena?
Well, I mean, I obviously can't even speak for Hell because, it's hard enough in hardcore right now to find a decent Nightmare game. But I can definitely see it. I mean, I think just looking at the weapon I had, I came in with really, really low DPS, dagger, and then, I didn't find a weapon that would have replaced what I normally had, maybe until around Act 3. So I would have had to gone, if I was just doing the self-find method, I would have had to have gone 2 acts doing next to nothing in damage before I found something that was decent enough to kind of get me to survive. It was because of the auction house that I was able to kind of take advantage of that.
How about you, Neinball? Where has your gear been coming from?
I guess it's like the one advantage of having a more or less like dedicated group, and being the only dexterity user. I never really had any problems. No one in my group really had any problems with gear, since we would all easily just pass anything along. Whenever we would go and kill a boss or attempt to craft things, to where I might go and attempt to craft some like rare shoulders, like some level 40 rare shoulders or whatever, and I attempt to craft like 5 pairs. I don't get anything that's dex, but I found like 1 thing that's strength and 2 that are intelligence that one of the other players in my group might have been able to have used. And so just that constant passing around of gear made it to where none of us even really touched the auction house until we got maybe like halfway through Hell, and some of us started playing solo a little bit.
So were you pooling your funds for one person to level up their artisans, or you were all doing that yourselves?
We were all just leveling up our artisans individually.
And it still worked out. So I guess with 4 people, you're always getting quadruple drops on every boss. So
yeah, so it's like just your chance of getting gear that's usable for somebody in your group is pretty high, especially if you have it spread out. If we had maybe had a demon hunter or something other than 2 wizards in the group, we might have been able to have spread it out a little bit more, but like the majority of like the crossbows ended up just getting salvaged or sold.
And you said it was hard finding good games, Xanth. I mean, you're kind of a well-known person in the hardcore community, and we have a pretty busy hardcore forum, but there haven't been a lot of... there are very few hardcore public games, it seems like.
Yeah, it is, it's kind of like a ghost town. I think, right now, a lot of people are just trying to explore and see what there is, and maybe they're kind of distancing themselves from hardcore based on the known difficulty of Inferno. And maybe it'll get a little bit better depending on what Blizzard decides to do from there. But it is a ghost town, and obviously normal you can find a decent amount of people, but once you get into maybe past Act 1 of Nightmare, it really starts to slow down. Like I said, I'm in Act 4 Nightmare right now, and you click on a quest and there'll be 0 players on this quest, 0 players on the other one, 0 players on the last one. In even the later parts of Act 3, it's kind of the same. And I think that you can attribute it to a couple of things. I mean, one, it is a little more difficult, and sometimes it's just a lot easier to go by yourself. Because there's always the one person. I had it happen before who joins a game and then just waits in town for a couple of minutes, and then you're down there fighting who knows what, and it's insanely more difficult because they're not going to jump in and help you. So if you were by yourself, you don't have to worry. I think there is a larger hardcore community out there, but they're just not joining with other people.
It's only been 2 weeks. They're probably still getting their feet wet and trying to figure out what they want to do before they go online, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, before they go public, anyway.
Yeah, maybe they, do you think it might be something where they just haven't experienced it, so they want to see how bad it could be in a possible, group scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I even played my first, the Witch Doctor through normal. I played it entirely solo, just because everything was new. I didn't, look at any, softcore playthroughs or anything like that. I just wanted to experience the way it was and, just kind of feel it out blindly. So I was able to get through the whole, the whole course of the game without, having to group with anybody. And, when you go through that mindset, it's like, well, if I bring somebody else in, is it going to help me or is it going to hurt me? And I found it's kind of a mix, at least in the public games, where you have people who are awesome and, they're out there kicking butt. And then you have the people who just want to, go AFK for 10 minutes, or you have the people who are just kind of lagging behind and not really doing anything.
You made a post about the dangers of people training monsters into town and parking them in the middle of Tristram. Monster killing is obviously a possibility for griefing. Do you think that's something of an issue in public games? I mean, you posted a warning about it.
Because, like I said, there's limited amount of games, and then you can only run the same stuff over and over without anybody else. People kind of get bored. There's no PvP, so they resort to kind of doing what they can and griefing other people. I mean, I get where it came from. I mean, people like to do that in, Diablo II, or, train a whole bunch of peoples around a town, or, train all the cows around the town portal and say it's safe, and then boom, you walk in and you're dead. I think it's an issue that they kind of need to take care of. I mean, it is only in Act 1, but that's the first act you start in. You don't know what game you're joining. You don't know who's in that game, and you can easily just show up and be dead. That's not a great way to start out, a harder difficulty.
Yeah, I posted a video of, town is not safe, and it was some Inferno barbarian running, leading a 4 grotesque, God knows what they were, mortar, 4 of their mods.
Right.
Through town trying to survive. As someone said, he led them all the way back to Diablo II, he ran so far. But, I mean, yeah, even accidentally, you go out into the Weeping Hollow and you find some really nasty monsters, and you retreat, you end up running back into the cellar and, cuddling with Mira Eamon's rotting corpse for safety. I mean, you can't entirely blame a person necessarily, but
right.
There's no other place to run there, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, accident.
But it's weird that they made this, obviously this. I got to assume this is something Blizzard didn't really think about in testing, or else they would have made you'd first appear in the inn or something instead of in the middle of town.
Right, or they would obviously have some sort of buffer that like maybe the monsters would turn away once they got that close. So obviously to prevent the guards from killing them or whatever it would maybe, but at least have them move away or something. I imagine it'll get fixed because it seems like it's, I feel like in posting it, we may have informed more people of it, but the more knowledge that they have is better.
Yeah, and that's one thing that kind of surprises me, that they'd leave something, as open as that, because, I mean, going all the way back to the Wrath of the Lich King beta, one of the biggest surprises that they found in testing was as soon as the beta realms came on, 2 things happened. A bunch of people went and created the level 55 Death Knights, and then a whole bunch of people took their level, 70 characters and went out to the Death Knight starting area to just go and kill all the people rolling, these new characters. It's like there's no end to the amount that people want to just grief in a game, to where they'll even do it in a beta test within an hour of it going live.
Welcome to BattleNet.
Yeah, the people will find a way.
Is there a different kind of mindset, or people are obviously doing different things with gear? I'd assume amethysts are a lot more popular.
Yeah, I've noticed, at least from because I've really been pushing myself to play a lot more public games now. Just I got my solo playthrough. May as well go in and kind of see what's going on with the rest of the community. It is slower. It's more meticulous. And just in a game I was in, somebody was yelling at somebody for using diamond skin instead of something for damage, and like the quick response was, well, you can tell me how I want to have my build, but I'd like to stay alive. So we're going to do a little less damage, but our goal is to stay alive and still be able to do it. I think it is a bit of a mindset, and I know at least one of the things I'm always looking for on my gear, is vitality. How much health can I have to kind of keep me between death, and then the passive too. Obviously, the Witch Doctor's passive has saved my life way too many times.
Well, that scenario of the one person complaining about damage over survivability, like what level range was that?
That was in Act 3 Nightmare.
Okay. Yeah, because I've noticed that, a lot of people have been saying more and more as you get at least higher in softcore, it's like damage. You need more damage. It's like have enough survivability in order to take a few hits, but, gear yourself to try and kill them before you die.
So, given that you're an old hand in World of Warcraft, Neinball, there's two questions. Do you miss Murlocs?
Well, there is the Murloc Legendary that's in the game that I could pretend that I might have or seen.
Okay, that's a yes. And the second question, more relevantly, is you're used to people bitching about other people in the raid saying you're not using X skill properly, we need more damage, you need to heal faster, you're not pulling the aggro or whatever those WoW terms are.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a natural extension into Diablo 3? Do you see people, you're playing with your friends from your WoW guild. Are people saying, hey, dude, skill X, you need to use it now? Where's my big bad voodoo? I need my faster attack here for 20 seconds on Asmodan or something.
That's one thing that actually really surprised me as we were going and playing through. We all just kind of did our own things, and we all just naturally kind of pick things that would help out the group, whether it be slow time that increased the amount of damage that the mobs took, or, I played with the Mantra of Evasion with the one that gave the 20% increased armor, and the Barbarian in our group also played with the one that increased armor shout that also gave the health regen. So we all kind of, made it to where we, just kind of worked in a synergy, but we never really actually asked any of the other people to go and pick anything. When we've gone through and helped people at least run through Act 1 Inferno, is we have made some critiques where it's you're gonna need to change that skill, or try and find a higher DPS weapon, because it's just it's such an increase to where I might have no problems going and soloing the Butcher. As soon as the second person gets added in, the amount of health and the damage increase, it's if they're not able to pull their own weight, it makes it next to impossible for me.
Speaking of next to impossible, we've seen Inferno. You said you played a little of it, Neinball, and it basically kicked your barbarian's ass.
Monk.
Close enough. And we saw other people...
They're melee.
Same thing.
Yeah.
All those melee meatheads are the same, really.
More or less.
We saw some people... Both you guys were on the Predictions podcast, and we saw people beat hardcore in 4 days. Do you recall what you predicted for that, Neinball?
I think I said I'd be surprised if it took longer than a week.
You know what you said, Xanth?
I said a month, I think. I was
okay, so you were on track.
Off, yeah.
So given that people have beaten it, with dying, stun and run, just going to bosses, chain rezzing, fairly exploitive tricks, a number of skills that have been hot fixed already, Smokescreen and the Monk's Boon of Companion and such.
Mm-hmm.
Are you, obviously Blizzard's going to be doing some balancing. It seems like they issued the game with Inferno. Like they said before advance, they made it to what they thought was a safe, really difficult level, and then they doubled every stat. And it's, you've played at some Neinball, and you don't seem to think that it sounds like you're saying it's too difficult. I mean, to be played reasonably without endless item farming. Would you like to see it lowered in difficulty some, or balanced differently?
Well, it's one of the things that I had hoped for a very long time, that it would just be insanely difficult, that it would take a very long time for anybody to clear legitimately. And
then you got there and you got slaughtered.
Yeah.
Now how do you feel?
Well, it's. I feel as if they did it in kind of a cheap way, is because they said that they wanted to make Inferno challenging, but they didn't want it to have the Diablo II style where everything just one-shots you. because it's the only thing that would actually provide a challenge, since you could just potion chug. And now they went through and did it, and you can't potion chug, and everything still one-shots you. So they kind of went back on, whatever design decision that they were, talking about previously leading up to launch. So it's difficult, but it feels as if it's difficult because it's just cheap. You get yourself especially for the melee characters, where the characters that are making some real steady progression without having to have perfect gear, they kite mobs, or what you refer to as the stun and run if you're in groups. But with a melee character, your kiting capabilities are very limited, since you actually have to get into melee, so you have to be able to survive a couple of hits. And, the champion packs in Act 2 just, three-shot you, even with 75%, armor and 40% resist and 40% dodge. Everything just, it doesn't matter. The wasp's little projectiles, hit you for 9,000 apiece. It's as if you don't have any armor at all.
How many hit points does your barbarian have in Inferno?
I have 37,000.
Too little.
Yeah, I was actually, there's a monk that has beaten Asmodan, and he had some ridiculously perfect gear, 19k DPS. I believe he had 70,000 hit points, 700 resists, and about 71% armor. And that was the only.
And he won.
Yeah.
And he'd spent more time in the auction house than the game at that point, probably.
I would not be surprised, but yeah, he said that in order to progress into Act 2, he did over 100 butcher runs in order to even get the amount of gear to get into Act 2, and then he did 150 runs of Magda in order to progress through the rest of that and get into Act 3.
It's nice that they've changed Diablo 3 so there's no longer boss running as required as an endgame.
Yeah.
A beautiful update.
Yeah, it's pretty much just going through and you get because I'm not sure if anyone's really talked about it that much for the people that haven't gotten to 60 yet or not, but those stacks of Nephilim Valor, in addition to, giving you the gold and the magic find, once you have 5 stacks, the boss drops more loot. So the boss is guaranteed at least 2 rares, and they drop 7 or 8 blues when you have the 5 stacks of Valor. In addition to just having that increased magic find, they go back to having those guaranteed rare drops.
I'm sure that'll be patched out immediately. So Inferno, Xanth, you've been looking at hardcore. Some people have gotten into Inferno in hardcore. Do you feel like it's not playable for the average human?
I think, just like you had mentioned, playing a lot on the auction house. Is it doable? Maybe. We haven't heard about hardcore Inferno, kill yet, for Diablo. And I think that's still going to be a long time coming. I do think somebody will do it. It's just going to take a lot longer. And from everything that I've seen, I saw a video actually of somebody getting killed by Dalton. In Inferno.
Captain Dalton, the undead guard in Adria's cellar.
Right. Dalton is killing people.
My first venture into Inferno, I died when the zombies broke through the barrier for the first Wretched Mother.
Huh.
I waded into it in order to go through and attack them, because previously it's they don't hit that hard, and all of a sudden I noticed that 3 of them hit me at the same time and I was dead. Yeah,
I feel like Inferno for hardcore character is what kind of like the original D2 without the expansion pack, when you are in the Chaos Sanctuary and just have it filled with MSLEs. I feel like that's what Inferno is. Where everything can just rape you. And that to me in the hardcore mindset just feels wrong, that everything is able to kind of just basically one-shot you. I don't know. Obviously I haven't got a chance to test it, and I'm looking forward to, losing 100+ hours in one shot, but I don't know. I think it's going to be a while before somebody can break through that. And they're going to have to do, like Neinball said, lots of, runs in hell. And I've been seeing a lot of people saying that perhaps our Inferno is Act 4 hell. So just kind of wait it out and see if they drop the nerf hammer on Inferno.
Yeah, I read a whole thread about that in the hardcore forum this morning when I was doing doing a forum watch post. Is our end game Act 4 hell? And people were like, maybe.
I mean, I think from the hardcore player mindset, and like I said, I'm attached to my character too. If you know that when you walk into Act 1, that these zombies that break through the barricade, as Neinball said, can kill you, would you go in? And I think it takes a very special type of player to go in with the mindset of, okay, I'm going to. And in that video, actually, the one that I had seen, those people got their level 60 to Inferno by using the Asmodan exploit. So their amount of hours was cut down by, 100. The average person who, plays hardcore and makes it into Inferno, it has going to have at least like 100 hours invested in that character. And as a result, you're putting that on the line. I'm okay with risking my character's life if I have the chance, to survive. But if I don't, I'm probably going to stick to what I know I can do.
And do you feel that that's, compared to Diablo II, there obviously was no Inferno, and I had a level 99 hardcore at one point, and a bunch of other in the 90s that I, retired, and some that died as well, but it wasn't anything like that amount of hours. You could level up so quickly once you had twinks and stuff, and you could run through content as well. In Diablo 3, you can't really run away from anything.
Right, well, there was power leveling too. And you could easily kind of get rushed into hell and then, be put and parked in, the sanctuary and have somebody kill a bunch of stuff and you get a boost. So now the getting a hardcore character to 60 takes a lot more time and a lot more effort. And, we saw them shut down the Asmodan exploit rather quickly. So they're really trying to discourage that concept. So now it just becomes a bigger gamble if you're going to put your hardcore character in Inferno.
And people who are listening who might not know, the Asmodan exploit was you got a huge bonus experience for completing the quest.
Yeah, I think it was like 30,000. Enough.
And you could get that with like a level 3 character sitting in town, basically, as well. So
yeah.
You could level up to like level 50 without ever doing a damn thing.
Yeah.
Just by joining games and getting quest bonuses.
Right, and then just, once you get to a high enough level, jump to the next difficulty, rinse and repeat.
Doesn't do a lot of good for your item improvements, but it certainly helps your level.
Right, and then just go on to the auction house. I think you got like 10,000 gold for the quest, too.
Yeah.
So not too shabby.
And since we can't yet just pay Chinese people to level up our characters for us, that was essential. Oh, wait. Or you can play 100 hours, like you were saying, and actually learn how to play the game and have fun with it.
Right.
Not to moralize. So, to a little lighter topic, monster mods. There's tons and tons of monster mods. Lots of them you don't see until Nightmare, that you don't get on normal, or later in normal as well. Do you guys have any favorites, any interesting, horrifying adventures that stand out in your mind? You got one, Neinball?
Yeah, the one that still plagues me to this day is, at least on my melee character, is Molten. I was actually kind of impressed, like, the first time that we encountered a couple of the Molten mobs, especially in the later levels, is that the AI is tweaked a little bit, and they will try a lot harder to run around you and get you in that Molten patch, especially also like when in the higher difficulties when combined with fire chains, is they actually proactively attempt to get you into the Molten patches or into those fire chains. So even like a slow enemy, like a zombie, which would normally they would just all walk up to you and start smacking you from, just the closest distance they could get, that they would now attempt to run behind you, which the normal AI would never do. And that was one thing that I was actually really surprised by, and just that the elemental damage on that is just obscene compared to any of the other modifiers that are out there. That one has cost me many lives.
The combo that I absolutely hate is either Waller Jailer, either one of those, plus Arcane. Anything where I get stuck and then I'm just going to sit there and take damage, or it usually involves me trying to just get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. But every time I've done Arcane, I've always been very thankful it wasn't the Hydras anymore. If you remember from the beta, they used to spawn these really ridiculous Hydras that would just wipe you out. So I can avoid a line that's kind of, going clockwise across the screen, but I could never avoid those. But basically anything that traps me in, especially in hardcore, where I'm just trying to not sit there and take damage, not let my health dip like that, is brutal.
I'd imagine Spirit Walk is a mandatory Witch Doctor skill in hardcore.
I've I'll have it in sometimes, and I'll take it out other times, depending on if I want to do a little more damage. I always have Spirit Vessel, though, as my passive. So if I dip to 10%, I'll then immediately shift if I receive a Fatal Blow, I should say, I'll immediately dip to the Spirit World, and I'll get 10% of my health back.
So for people who don't play Witch Doctor, can you describe what that passive does?
Yeah, well, like I said, it'll shift you into, I think you get like 3 or 4 seconds of the Spirit Realm where nothing can attack you, nothing can do damage to you, and you can basically just get the hell out of there. And then as you're doing it, you'll get about 10% of your health back, which should be enough to kind of keep you alive, and then obviously run away a little bit. That was basically how I beat Diablo, was with that skill, because I just, once you go into the shadow, and I had to fight my other self, I was just getting demolished. And I had to shift in there, I think, at least twice. And it's only a 90-second cooldown, so it's not too bad between it. But it feels
so
like...
it automatically casts your best escape skill for you.
Right.
And heals you so you don't die. So pretty useful passive there, obviously for hardcore at least.
I think it's almost mandatory for a hardcore Witch Doctor. I don't understand how you wouldn't, just to kind of, save you for when, I feel a lot safer clicking on a banner to kind of go in to fight something when I know that even if things go really wrong, I kind of have a get out of jail free card.
My interesting boss mod story is, of course, involves the Den of the Fallen, which was the terror spot in the beta even. And my first game in Nightmare with my Demon Hunter, I entered there and immediately, of course, with great trepidation, thinking this is always hell in the beta. I'm sure it's still going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Immediately by the doorway, I got a Desecrator Plagued Bat Boss. And Plagued, of course, casts green pits of poison that stay where they are, and Desecrator casts red pits of fire that stay where they are. So basically it was Christmas in this entire area, and I'm vaulting around it, randomly for like 30 seconds with some crappy DPS weapon, which was entertaining. I actually didn't die there. And then I went down to level 2 of the Fallen Den, and immediately got a Jailer Arcane Enchanted. Which I thought, this is easy. I can just back up from... Of course, there's 2 second hands coming, and suddenly I'm jailed. You can't vault, you can't do anything. I just it was like the last reel of A Tale of Two Cities. I'm just waiting for the second hand to, the guillotine's coming, and I died.
Do you need to do a spoiler for Tale of Two Cities there? You probably just ruined it.
Yeah. We've had a lot of problems with, a lot of news at least, about hacked accounts. Have you had your account hacked, Neinball, or anybody you know? Or do you think that's just people who don't have authenticators because they don't play WoW?
Well, it's like everyone that I know has an authenticator, and no one has been hacked.
Have you heard about anyone getting their account hacked, cacked in hardcore, Xanth?
I have not. I mean, I've seen it on the forums and stuff like that, and I think as a result, I downloaded an authenticator just because, I've got an iPhone, it's free, I may as well. So it scared me enough to do it because I'm just thinking of losing time and I guess money, whatever. Yeah, I haven't actually heard or seen anybody who has.
You wonder if they would even want to. I mean, I'm kind of assuming they're stacking up, the people who are hacking accounts are saving up the loot to sell it in the RMAH, and there's not going to be an RMAH for hardcore, at least in theory.
Yeah, that might be enough to kind of discourage somebody, but, they may not necessarily even know, who knows how these people are hacking or what have you. I have a softcore character, but, who knows?
Yeah, you're level 10 monk, whoopie-doo.
He's just hanging out. He'll get deleted eventually.
So, I wonder, but we all think there's probably going to be third-party hardcore gold, item sales for real money at some point, even if Blizzard doesn't ever enable it. So I guess that would be the same thing.
Right.
Same as World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
I think there are third-party sites where you can do that now. I don't feel the need to. It seems like, at least with the auction house and hardcore, that things are running pretty smoothly. That I don't think people are trying that, but we'll see, obviously where people's greed takes them in the long run.
You wanted to mention story, Nineball. That's an area of your one of your pet peeves.
Yeah.
How was your reaction to the story and the plot twists and the lore and everything like that in Diablo 3?
Like at least like from the lore perspective, all the little journal entries and everything going throughout the entire game, and it adding like commentary and giving you like meaning as to like what you're going through and the enemies that you're fighting. I thought that was a really cool touch and something that is really, really nice for Diablo. So you get to, just learn the history of all the countless numbers of demons and all the locales that you're going to. And, the story was, predictable, but it was enjoyable, at least for me, all the way up to the ending. Because it's just kind of like you kill Diablo, and then that's it. There's no conclusion, really. There's so many questions that you have at the end of the game, and not a single one of them are addressed or answered at all. And so it was just like a really big letdown, because you just, they're having all this build-up, and then nothing whatsoever.
Well, there was a shiny cinematic with him falling and burning and stuff.
Yeah, that was about it. And then it's like that cinematic in and of itself, opens up a new question, because it's like, Diablo dies and burns away, but the Black Soul Stone's there, and then, falls from heaven, assumingly, like back to Sanctuary. So it didn't get destroyed. What happened to it? So it's like even the cinematic itself doesn't, it creates more questions than it it didn't even attempt to answer any questions.
So, what's your 1 to 10 rating for the story and the plot?
It's like all the way up to the ending. I would probably give it an 8, and then the ending itself, I'd give it like a 5 or a 4. It was just like disappointing. I mean, it was just I don't want to say that it's bad, but it wasn't even a real ending. I mean, even the original Diablo, kind of gave some closure to like the story and like what happened to Baal and all that before going into the expansion. And even though it left it as a cliffhanger, it wrapped up a lot of its loose plot lines, even though it didn't have that many. But it gave some closure before going into the expansion. With Diablo 3, there's no closure at all. I mean, it gives you, especially like right before the final fight with Diablo, it gives you like 4 or 5 new plot hooks right at that point before the final battle, and then nothing. It's like you just are left wondering, well, what the hell now? Even in the final conversation, it's like with Tyrael, ascending back to the council, going through and saying, it's like, well, there will always be evil. It's like I don't know. It was just a very bad ending. Very, very bad ending.
Do you have a story opinion, Xanth?
I guess, I was a little let down with the ending. Obviously, I don't think as much, but I will agree. I mean, like Diablo 1, Diablo 2, there was a clear connection. You knew where the story was going, and I felt like at the end that it felt like it was almost as if there was going to be no expansion, that they were just trying to be like, okay, he's dead, there you go, kind of thing. Whereas I did kind of want that, like, okay, well, what comes next? What are we going to do? What's the goal?
Yeah, it was like, what happened to Leia's soul? Where's Adria? Where's Malthael? What actually did happen to the World Stone? So many questions.
Right. And we got nothing.
And the answer is in the expansion pack.
Yeah. But it's like, even if they had done something like the way that D2 Classic had done, where it made it obvious that there's more to it. Like in this one, you actually had to talk to any of the characters. If you just went and played through the game without actually talking to all the little NPCs to get those expansion hooks, I feel that would be even worse, because then you just have like this non-conclusive ending without any hooks to bring you further into the story at that point.
Do you feel that they needed... My main problem with the story and the plot was that I didn't feel the bosses appeared via holograph often enough to taunt me during the act. I thought a little more of that would have been good. How did you guys feel with that aspect of things?
It reminded me a lot of when they were first introducing Neinball. You have to help me with this. It's Wrath of the Lich King, right?
Yeah.
Their goal they said with that was to get the players interacting with the end boss as frequently as possible, so that they could view it as more of like a triumph and stuff like that. And I'll agree with you, Flux. I felt that kind of feeling that where if you're constantly interacting with them, then you'll feel like the goal to kind of defeat them, or that you'll want to, go out and kick their butt when, we're not, I don't think most people are necessarily motivated by it. I think some points it makes sense, but yeah, when, Asmodon has to come up and yell at me after every quest, it gets a little old.
Yeah. I think Act 2 is probably one of the best acts in the game, and the way that they did that, subtly with Belial, is probably one of the better ways. Although I did enjoy Zoltan Kuhl, having him, follow me around. He had some pretty interesting things to say, and he was just like such an over-the-top villain that it was hard to take him seriously, and that just kind of made it enjoyable.
And he's subversive, and what could you be if you gave into the dark side?
Well, yeah,
embrace the power of the Force.
Yeah, it's like out of all the characters, I think I liked Zoltan Kuhl the best, and it's like we should have joined his side. We probably wouldn't be in this scenario if we had listened to his advice. What if we had followed Zoltan Kuhl?
And you'd be cool too. There were a lot of little touches of story I liked. Little events and little random happenings.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was funny is when you first get to Act 3 and you're doing the clearing the ramparts atop the gates, every time an NPC guard talks to you, some goddamn bat snatches him off the cliff. 2 seconds later, it flies off.
Yeah.
That's like 5 times, or else hit by a catapult bomb. I kind of enjoyed that part. Were there any little touches that you guys noticed that you liked?
Speaking of that, like in Act 3, there was another one where it was a guy playing dead in the middle of you come across a field and it's on the ramparts, and it's a whole bunch of dead soldiers and dead monsters, and you have the little silver exclamation point, and you go and you walk up to him, and he's lying there playing dead. He's not actually hurt. He's just, he just doesn't want anybody to notice him. And of course, you encourage him and he gets back up to go and fight, and gets killed by a catapult, like 2 seconds later. That one was pretty funny.
Any of those for you, Xanth?
Off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of anything. I mean, the one thing I did like is obviously it's probably partially due to the fact that it's a very linear story, but the quests seemed logical. I don't know. Like, I don't have to go off to this random place and go get this and then come back and then like, okay, now you need to go here. I'm going here because I need this, and it progresses the story. And I mean, obviously, the Zoltan Kuhl quests, you have to go and get so many different things, but I don't know, going out and destroying a catapult, like, that makes sense because you want to weaken the enemy and stuff like that. I did like that kind of logical part of the storyline, as logical as you can be in a game where I can throw locusts at stuff.
And that was a new element. We saw nothing like destroying catapults on quests in a barbarian stronghold in Diablo II, so it's nicely innovated there.
Yeah. Kudos.
Any final thoughts from you guys? Anything else we haven't gotten to that you really wanted to mention?
I probably would like to say that, it's like as far as like gameplay goes, I'm fairly impressed with the game, and it definitely is like that addictive item grind that D2 was, and going and I've been playing as the wizard more or less solo, through all of normal at this point with the Templar, and just it's really funny just seeing the camaraderie between the followers, and it makes me want to just switch out and use another one of them. As I play through again, and even playing through the game, through all the difficulties except Inferno at this point, playing through on another character, and I've seen dungeons I never saw before, or lore books that I had missed, and things like that, there's always these little tiny things that you never get to experience unless you actually play through it a lot of times. And I just like that replayability, and like there's just so much detail that they did put into the game. It makes it really enjoyable as you progress from like one stage to another to another. All the environments are just like amazingly done.
I think one of my biggest worries was like the skill system. I thought by, level 30 everybody would be using the exact same build. And I find myself, like I said, 52, just trying everything. Like, I always have a doubt that, my build is the best it can be, and I'm always looking at somebody else's, and it doesn't seem like there's a clear winner. I guess I really like that. I like always having to question if I could be doing something a little bit better and take a look at this, let's try this, and I think that is really cool. So, like I said, I had my reservations, and I think I was wrong on that.
You had reservations, but you're eating there anyway, and now you're enjoying it.
Exactly.
I would, I guess, concur with you guys mostly. I had a lot of worries about the difficulty curve, and that's obviously proven not to be too much of a problem. It seemed like the beta was so easy and so linear.
Right.
And they kept promising us it would open up and get more challenging, and they were right. It did.
I think they retooled it so that even Act 1, like even the beta content was more difficult. And maybe I'm wrong, but it felt that way. Or maybe since it was the first time playing where I could actually really die and it would mean something, it felt more difficult.
My first game, I was playing with Ellie on the European servers when they first opened up, and it was much harder at the start. More monsters, especially like you get to the Weeping Hollow and then the Cathedral. We were like, these are way bigger packs than we're used to seeing. We were getting like 3 and 4 skeletal summoners at once instead of just 1 or 2.
Right.
And that, partially it does scale up in multiplayer. You do get more enemies. So maybe because you were playing solo your first time through.
I was, yeah.
Nineball was in his 4-player party. He must have seen hella monsters.
Yeah, it definitely did feel like there were a lot more monsters than I'd ever seen in beta. Just like even going through Cathedral 2, it's like the bat packs, instead of being like 5, it'd be like half the screen worth of bats, like going through and coming at you from the corridors.
One-word answer: have you found a legendary item or set item yet, Nineball?
Yes.
How many?
1.
How about you, Xanth?
Yes, 1.
There you go. I have also found 1. I found a Witch Doctor helm last night, or a hat, or mask, whatever the hell they're called. And it sucked, of course.
Yeah, I found an old school Messerschmitt's Reaver in Act 4 Hell. Although, unfortunately, it's only like 500, even though I got close to as perfect a roll as you could possibly get on that weapon, but it's absolute garbage because it's only like 500 DPS.
And it's still not worth using.
Yeah.
And that was part 2 of my question. Have you guys followed the whole issue with sets and legendaries not measuring up even to blue items, much less good rares? And do you think that's a big problem?
I do think it is. I mean, the belt I got, it was with my Barbarian. I think it was like level 18. The belt had 16 defense and was garbage. Like when you're that low level and you find a legendary, it should be like the first thing you're equipping. Like it should just be amazing. And it's not. I don't think they should be the top end item. I don't think they should be the end all beat all. But they should be good enough to wear at level 18 or something. Like this legendary had no use. Nobody would want it. And that's kind of sad. It almost defeats the point of having them in there. It's more like nostalgia, because nobody would ever use it. But I remember the grandfather from D2 and D1. I'll buy it because, hey, it used to be cool.
Yeah, there's I think like the first legendary that dropped in our party was in Nightmare. It was like the Blind Faith, like a level 45 helmet, and it dropped and it was like, oh, the first legendary, and screams over mumble and all that. But then when it was identified, it was like a 30 dexterity, 30 int, and like did damage to the attacker, had a socket, and like plus healing from like health globes, and it was like, that's garbage. It wasn't even like remotely useful. And then the next couple that dropped were both of our wizards within a day of one another both had like another like level 40-ish, level 50 monk spirit stone that dropped, and both of them were also that's garbage. It had very little dexterity on it compared to just like some of the helmets that you could buy from the vendors. They're just like incredibly disappointing. And I think Azure has just made some really good points in his criticism of the system, and Blizzard is something that it's within the Blizzard's capability of changing and going back in and buffing the legendaries and making them useful. If they don't want to tune down Inferno that much, one of the things that they could do is go and buff legendaries, and that would help I guess even though it wouldn't smooth out the difficulty curve, it would make it a little bit easier by having some overpowered items that you could potentially have drop to help you through those difficulties.
Part of the complaint people were saying is they had to make legendaries really rare because otherwise with the auction house they would have been, 10 billion of them immediately flooding the market.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just, they are really rare, they're hard to find, but then the fact that they're not really very useful is an issue. And it's not that they're not useful compared to the super quality crap you can buy in the auction house. I mean, they're not even useful compared to self-found stuff, which is what's really perplexing to people. That and their lack of flavor. They're just sort of a grab bag of meh.
Yeah, it's like I think it was like one of the things you kind of brought up in the last podcast, where if you had an item drop that had like the bugged out durability, you knew that this could have rolled as a unique, or it could have rolled as a side item. It's like that feels kind of crappy. I almost had a unique. Now it feels as if it's like if you're one of those people,
wish it had been rare.
Yeah, it's like you're going through, and if, say, you're clearing an Act 3 Inferno, and you have an Ezharath drop, it could have been like, that could have been 1,000 DPS rune sword, if it was a blue. It's like, oh, great, and instead I got this garbage.
That's pretty harsh, dude. That's enough. Okay, well, thanks for your time, guys.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com. Moo. Either of you done the secret level yet?
Not yet.
I actually have not. I have a couple friends that have gone through and created it, but I was just so focused. It's like, I want to do Inferno. It's not happening.
And now you're playing Wizard and Nightmare.
Yes.
Move. Hi, we're back with the podcast. I'm now speaking with Exile.
Hey.
So how is the game feeling? You played a fair amount in the beta when you could find time away from the ball and chain and real life and other unimportant things. And now you've got the full game. What's your first character and how high level are they, and what do you think of the whole thing?
Well, my first character is obviously a witch doctor. I love the guy. I am currently I wanted to get 60 before this podcast, so I'm like 59.99999.
So did you play mostly single or with a party when you were leveling up?
I played mostly with a party in the first levels. Then I went back and sort of filled in the blanks because I missed a lot of things when I'd have to, go to work or go to school or all those things. So I was mainly solo for like maybe 30 to 40. I tried public grouping. It was all right. There's definitely some drawbacks, especially when people are severely undergeared. And it's one of those things where if people are in a public game, and they're sitting in town, you're dying on the vine trying to kill things that just got, exponentially more difficult. It's the ultimate no hands griefing. Just go into someone's game and sit there.
Just ruin their experience.
Yeah, but just be
And it's not like Diablo 2 where you got bonus items and experience. You get nothing. You just get screwed in Diablo 3.
Yeah, pretty much. Everything gets harder.
Xanth and Neinball, I just talked to, had both done much what you've done in terms they played one character to 50 or 60 and very little of others. And was that what you planned on doing in advance? You wanted to power one character through and see Hell and Inferno?
Yeah. Also, the one thing that's really nice, I actually started my wizard on Friday, and he's level 8, and he has a... yeah, I know, right?
I got a solid hour right there.
I know, yeah. I went through the first part of Act 1. And it's nice that I have a blacksmith that's, level 8, and I have a jewel crafter that's level 7. It's nice that those things are ready. So, yeah, kind of power leveling through one character to make it easier for my alts was really the plan.
Yeah, it's hard not to twink in Diablo 3.
Yeah.
And the shared gold and everything, you really can't help but twink.
Yeah.
How much of your equipment has been self-found and crafted, and how much have you gotten in the auction house?
Actually, yeah, it was all self-found and all of my friends trading stuff. Then I discovered the auction house, which is kind of going through a thing right now, so I'm sort of laying off of it. But yeah, it's very nice. I really have to say that it took all the things that I hated about trading in Diablo 2 and fixed it. And they kept everything's relatively anonymous, and it's really it's good at helping you find what you're looking for.
And there's been complaints about it. Some people are saying that it kind of breaks the difficulty curve. Like, you get to Nightmare and you've got like a 42 damage weapon or something, and you're struggling along trying to find something better, trying to farm. Or you can go in the auction house and spend spend an hour of gold farming and buy like a 90 DPS weapon, and you can just cruise through up to Act 3 without even breaking a sweat.
Right. Nightmare was where my gear got a giant makeover. Where I'm at now in Hell mode, I can't really afford anything, so I think the economy is starting to really level out. So yeah, I'd have to kind of like really grind for gold and try not to die and have to repair and all of that. So I can see how some people would be irritated that you kind of pay to win, but to remind those people we're about to be able to truly pay to win if we want to, with our wallets and whenever that's happening, I guess.
It keeps getting backed up from technical problems, it seems like.
Yeah. I've kind of like, I was like, man, I would love to throw like $3 at a super Uber item, but we'll see. Azure I've been watching him and his page a lot, so I'm really curious to see what things will, when you put a dollar sign on them, what they're worth.
Yeah, that will change what the gold is worth, and a lot of people are posting careless auctions for like if the default price of 100 gold for really high-level gems and stuff, just because it's not real money yet. You wonder if they'll be much more careful when they're actually looking at, this is 50 cents versus $5.
Oh, yeah. I've come across that. Like, I found some pretty good rares, and I didn't really know what I had, and so I would take this, level 56 item, and like, I'll put it up there for like, 10K. Like, that seems
gone.
Reasonable. Yeah, it's immediately snatched up, and I go and look and find that I really should have been selling it for like 100K, like, about 100,000, and I feel kind of stupid. I certainly don't particularly care to take the time to find out how much something's worth right now, but I know I'm kind of dreading when the auction house. I mean, I'm both loving it and dreading when the real money happens, because I'm gonna have to figure out like, I feel worse if I just threw something away that could have been worth like, a lot more than what I charged 50 cents for it, and I could have got $10.
Yeah, and we may soon enough find that 100,000 gold you could have just sold that for like $3.
Yeah.
So who knows what the gold will be? And you're like, I just lost $19.
Yeah.
I kind of don't want to think about that when I'm playing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really opposed to the real money aspect, but if you start playing it and thinking, okay, in the next hour I've just lost 87 cents because I wasn't playing in this area, which is more profitable. It's like I just want to have fun when I play the game sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely like the things. I like where they are now. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be more stressful when the real money auction house shows up.
It's tough even. Like you look, they keep so many records of your characters. You can go and look and see exactly how many minutes and seconds you've played these characters. And you look and you played, 87 hours on your wizard or something, and it's like, really?
Yeah.
That's 8 hours a day for 10 days. What could I have done with this time? It's like I almost don't want to know. And then when you add money on top of that, it's like, Jesus, what am I? It's like you're going to be a midlife crisis in your 20s.
Yeah, you could probably take the amount of hours played, which I really wish games would stop putting that in there. Like, please don't put my addiction, don't rub the addiction into my face.
It's a little TMI, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a shocker after like a couple days to find out that I spent a full day playing my witch doctor.
And then I'm like thinking, well, I must have been AFK in town for a while I was curing cancer or something, I just forgot to log out. That was it. I wasn't actually playing for 17 hours of this character. I don't even remember playing yet.
Yeah.
Were you upset when your account was hacked? Because everybody's account has been hacked. That's what I saw in the news anyway.
It's funny you bring that up because what is it? It's only level 60s that are getting hacked? Something like that?
Well, I think that's kind of hanging the dollar sign on them,
Yeah. I'm
this is a character worth stealing from.
Yeah, I've actually been reading all of the wonderful articles on your site. There's a plug right there. And actually, today I set up the authenticator.
From what we've heard from Blizzard, it sounds like these people have tons of malware and backdoors on their machines already.
Right.
And these people who are these item stealers are just kind of watching and waiting them until they're, letting the pig fatten, basically.
Exactly, and then
there's no point in hacking a level 20, You wait till there's something juicy there.
Yeah, so, going back to my 59.99999 character, I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't have anything incredible, but I would really be upset if I lost any of those items, especially when I look at the amount of time I played my character.
Yeah, we thought in Diablo 2, characters didn't really matter that much. I mean, you could re-roll and you just, not that many hours and power level up in cows and stuff. And it was really about the items that were valuable.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot longer to level up in Diablo 3 unless you're using exploits with quest rewards from Asmodean and stuff. That's been getting hot fixed. But I think both seem to have more value now. I mean, even if like I was talking to Xanth, but his first character is now 52 hardcore witch doctor, never died yet.
Oh my god.
And he's put like 100 hours into this character because he's been going slowly and carefully, obviously, to not die. And you realize, man, that's a lot of investment. I mean, I had 90s die hardcore in Diablo 2, but you could make that back in like 2 days.
Yeah.
You could just twink some gear and get an 8-player games, and you'd be level 25 in like 40 minutes. So, I mean, not literally, but pretty quickly. And you think, man, all that time in your character's gone. Not just the equipment, but, I mean, that's a long build-up.
Yeah, I'm not even going to pretend like I'm going to do hardcore. I can't rationalize it, especially with how little time I have these days. I mean, it's hardcore. I applaud the guys who do it. Having a level 52 hardcore at this point is super impressive. My world would come like I remember when I did play hardcore and I had a level 60 or 70 in Diablo 2 and just feeling the weight of the world just crumble around me. And just like, then immediately you start thinking about all those times that, all that time you spent leveling that character and all the items that it had. And maybe I could call Blizzard and they could bring my character back. And
yeah. La, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
As their old disclaimer said.
Yeah.
Have you had any interesting monster mod experiences? Obviously, they get additional modifiers in Nightmare and then Hell and stuff you haven't seen. You get mortars chasing around the entire goddamn level, that kind of stuff. Any amusing tales from your experience thus far?
Just getting completely violated is pretty much what's been happening to me. Like, especially in Hell mode where there's 3 affixes to them. Like, is there going to be 4 affixes in Inferno? Because you'll get like
yes, there are.
Oh my god, you'll get like mortar, teleport, and then the arcane, basically that purple laser of doom that just slices your body in half. And then the one that absolutely kills me is mortar the one that when you're done killing them molten.
That's molten.
I have probably died. It makes me feel so stupid because I know exactly what's going to happen. The champion dies and he drops a rare and I go, oh, shiny. And I run up to it, and then I remember, oh, crap, molten, and pow, dead. One shot, gone.
Yeah, that was the whole thing in the beta when they had moltens and frozens initially. And you'd kill them, and you're like, oh, look at this, shiny, and then bang.
Yeah.
Now it's happening with level 50 characters. It's even worse.
Yeah, and I've literally, no joke, died about 20 times, and I do it every time. It's honestly, it's like Charlie Brown with, like, Lucy in the football.
The biggest complaint we've seen a lot of is items. Have you found any legendary or set items yet?
I have found a very weak legendary. I think it was like I was in the high 20s and I found a mojo. It was like for my level. Other than that, I have not found a single thing.
And you've seen the comments that they're kind of lacking in flavor, and they're not even as good as an average blue item, much less as a good rare item.
Actually, it is kind of a problem. I've noticed that certain affixes, like increased attack speed, severely shoots my DPS up, and I have pretty much a full set of blues right now on my Witch Doctor, and very, very rarely will I find a rare that can replace that blue. So yeah, I've been kind of following that. I haven't come across any of these legendaries, but yeah, some of the affixes aren't exactly uber. They're not exactly legendary.
Yeah. Were you a collector in Diablo 2? Did you want to get every unique and set, even if they weren't the best, just because you wanted them?
Oh yeah, I definitely wanted to get all the things, pretty much. My buddies.
And do you have any desire to collect them in Diablo 3?
Not really. I think, well, I mean, maybe it would be interesting. I definitely would like to get my Witch Doctor to stop looking so stupid.
Final thoughts? How is it compared to what you expected? I mean, living up to your hopes and dreams? You seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this game. It's right now where I am with it is that it's like the MMO light. So I'm really wishing there was some more theme park things. Like, I know they're working on stuff. Obviously, I'm big in the PvP. I would love to see that. I think that's pretty much like, the item hunt is great and everything, but I feel a little burned out at times because it's like, well, what happens when I get the items I continue to get items. But with PvP, I could go take those items and go smash people in the faces and rinse repeat.
You could also try another class at some point. They made 5 of them, you know.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm also getting witch doctored out a little bit just because he's so intense. Although I gotta say, the class is really like a hot rod. Like you have to really fine tune him, and when you get him going, it's a lot of fun. So I think I kind of want to pew things more. So I might go wizard or demon hunter.
Well, enjoy it.
Thank you.
And thanks for your time on the show. And you've been listening to the Diablo Podcast, and we are online at diablopodcast.com. Secret cow level.
Moo.
Have you done the secret level?
No, I haven't actually. I need to get into Whimsyshire.
Yeah, neither have I. All right. Thanks for the chat, dude. Talk to you later.